Let's talk about Substack. So, what is it? Why, how did you get into it? How could other faith leaders use this platform? Just give us a little overview intro to these waters that you've been splashing around in.
Yeah, well, Substack is basically like a newsletter meets blog. So it's an actual like platform. Like you can go to Substack, but then you can also land in people's inboxes. And then there's an app that you can read or that you can download so that you can kind of just read your feed, and which is what I do. And I have a 5-week-old, so I spend a lot of time rocking and scrolling in the middle of the night. So it's very helpful just to read things that are not just like the New York Times or Instagram. So I have been blogging since Zanga, like when that was a thing.
Yes. Uh, we are definitely
So
both the same geriatric millennials here. I think that's a good way of the Zanga generation. That's a good way to say it.
there's like a someone tweeted that was like, oh, I've lost followers. I used to write whole blog posts and to no one, and I loved it, and that was very true. So, so blogging, I mean, it feels very familiar. Like Substack doesn't feel new to me in that it's just a different platform, same thing. So,
Yep.
um,
It's more like, finally, you're back. I've been waiting for you.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, like blogs were big and then they kind of went away, like the popularity of them. And then now Substack is a thing. And Substack is great because you get to keep your followers. So you get to bring in people, you can bring in like a mailing list. But if you were to leave Substack, like Substack doesn't own them. And you get to take it all with you. And then you could monetize it if you'd like, which is what I do. I have like free subscription content and then paid subscription content, really cheap. I pay a couple of subscriptions myself, so that I can get lots of content. So um, I don't. I think I just like started subscribing to someone on Substack. Like it just showed up on their website or something, and then I was kind of into this world. And what I like about it is, unlike blogs, it's really uniform. It's a uniform look, so you're not like concerned with like building a website or like adding music or anything like that. It's like you have some graphics, but for the most part, it's just words. And I like it. I mean, I feel like there are some that I read that are really long, but for the most part, they're like 1,000 words, which is just a couple of minutes. And yeah, so I really appreciate Substack because it kind of gives you have like all sorts of creators on there. Like it's not just people like musing or pontificating. Like you have like fitness instructors and cooks and photographers who are talking about stuff. And
Yep.
so,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh yeah. My Substack subscription feed is probably a slightly lopsided balance of, progressive church folk like yourself. Nathan Webb has one for digital ministry stuff. Nadia Boltz-Weber, Diana Butler Bass,
Hmm.
people like that do Substacks. And then I have some running stuff I follow. So like Ali
Yeah.
on the Run is a great running podcast and people like that and stuff. So, and like you said earlier, I think one unique thing is that it's an email newsletter. Like it exists as people get this sent to their inbox and you still get to keep your email list if you left the platform, which is different than when we were all
Hmm.
on Zanga or Blogger or whatever. We were just hoping people subscribed to our RSS feed and Google Reader
Yeah.
back when that was a thing. And now you're sending your stuff directly to people's inboxes, to a place they're
Hmm.
opening. You're not at the mercy of Zuckerberg or Musk's algorithms on, will this make it through to the top of the tumultuous waves of content. Like, no, everything you post goes right into my email. It goes right onto my phone because I have the app on here. Which is something I think so valuable. As much
Hmm.
as email feels like, not at all a new technology, it's far from it. And we're all kind of probably buried and overwhelmed and mostly annoyed by it. Remember when we used to like email? Like you'd be like, ooh, Groupon, what are you giving me today? And now it could be like, Groupon, you're giving away free houses. I don't care. Archive, unsubscribe, delete, get out of my life. So, but still having that direct access to people's space
Yeah.
without the manipulation of an algorithm is really valuable. And
Hmm.
Substack allows you to have that direct contact and connection. And given that it's, social internet kind of 3.0, 2.0 stuff, it allows for conversations to go back and forth. People can comment, interact, reply,
Hmm.
all that kind of stuff that's multi-way, which we're used to on the internet. I love that. I love that. What else would you say to like a church leader, pastor, faith leader person who's like, should I use this? What are the ways that maybe it's an individual pastor or a church? How could they dip their toes into these Substack waters?
Yeah, I mean, I think that pastors are already trying to do something. If they're trying to do stuff online, they're trying to like get things out there to start conversations or to like put out even like devotional material for their church. And Substack is a great way because you probably already have all the emails of the people at your church. So something, this data that we collect. But it's a way that you can either send parts of your sermon, you can send out a Bible study to prep people, or thoughts to prep people, devotional material. You could have letters. I mean, it's really, or you can also like record podcasts and put music on Substack. So, and it's really intuitive. I think it's easy to learn. I mean, if you're already using some kind of different kinds of platforms, and Substack's pretty easy to learn. And there's a lot of content out there to help you learn Substack too. So when I was getting onto it, I listened to some podcasts about how to like maximize stuff on there, and so it's a way for pastors like to get in the email inbox of people. And to start conversations, and you can customize it exactly how you want,
Yep.
like how people comment, or how like you can do threads, or like if you want to put some audio stuff on there, or invite people to write for you.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah. That's
it's
a new thing they launched semi recently of allowing guest posts
mhm.
and things, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a pretty easy way for pastors to get in there.
Yeah, I know. So I sit, doing a lot of stuff at a church in Riverside Church in New York. We use, a generic email platform thing. It's called Benchmark.
Hmm.
It's kind of like the Mailchimps of the world, which does things really well to some extent. But I playing with Substack, I'm like, man, it'd be interesting to see the ways if a church were to use something like Substack as their primary mass email platform. Like, I think you'd have some shortcomings. I don't think you can do segmentation, so you can't like be like this just goes to members instead of everybody. You might be able to do things like paid versus free, but if I wanted to send a member announcement versus a email list announcement, so that's a shortcoming. But what I like is I feel like there's a different psychology in how I approach writing for Substack versus how I approach writing for like a MailChimp kind of a thing. One feels very announcement-y and one feels just more human person relationshipy. And I love the thought of a church or just even the pastor of the church using a thing like Substack as their primary mass communication platform for email, just for all the reasons we described, how it would let you still keep the data, email lists, get in their inboxes, but then it just feels more relational rather than more bulletin board. That's at least the vibe
Hmm.
I get from the ones I read. I feel like I'm getting a message from a person, not just like organization announcement speak. So,
Yeah, and you can also like recommend different Substacks.
oh
So
yeah.
people are always asking like, what should we read for Sunday school? And like I feel like the default is the Upper Room. Like that just persists. It's like a bacteria or something. Like it never goes away. And no offense to the Upper Room, but like this just like the go-to, especially for a certain generation. But like it's a way for you to recommend new thinkers without being threatening, without like stuffing it down people's throats and being like, oh, I read this really interesting, Sarah Bessie had something about how to deal with people who are deconverting, like this past week. Like this was an interesting read, and there's no pressure. But it's a way just to kind of like give some subtle exposure that's even less threatening than like reposting something on Facebook.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. All right, I like this. I like this. So, anyone watching, listening, if you end up dabbling into Substack, personally, great. We want to know. We want to see what you're up to. But I'd love to know of if a church is trying it. And I'm thinking of ways that maybe
Mhm.
Riverside could experiment. That could be interesting. That could be some fun stuff. Maybe I'll scheme something in the next for Advent or something and get back to us all on how it goes. But I definitely think it's also interesting to note just how Substack has you know blossomed in the past couple of years. And I think that just says something about
Mhm.
the psychology of people on the internet today. Like it seems like
Mhm.
we want blog, email, newsletter stuff again. In a world of,
Mhm.
60-second flip, flip, flip on your phone content, here's people who are like wanting to actually sit and read something of a little more length. It's not too long, but it's like it's actually takes presence and a little more discipline than just swiping through Instagram or TikTok. And I like just that shift in culture that we're open to a diversity of media and how the landscape isn't just video, video, video. Even though video is still a great thing to produce, no big deal. I'd love to see an Ashley Dargai YouTube channel someday. But I think Substack just allows for us to be present with written content in a really intentional and meaningful way, which as churches, I mean, we're kind of big into written content. We have a whole book that we've kind of been pouring over for a couple thousand years or so. It's like the original Substack. Oh, that was a bad joke. Bad joke.
Yeah, and I think too, like I was just gonna say, like it gives us like sustained exposure to thinkers that we like. You know, like we don't have to wait for a book to come out. We can
Yeah.
like hear their thoughts. Like I subscribe to Maggie Smith, her Substack, and she's a poet and a writer, and so I don't have to like wait for her books because she a lot of her Substack is talking about like process, which I love
Mm,
that. I love learning about writers' process, and so that just makes me appreciate her writing even more. And like she quotes a bunch of other writers that I've never heard of, you know, and so I think it kind of one thing that Substack someone said about Substack early on when I was like reading about it was that what people are wanting is not necessarily more content, it's more exposure and more
mm,
access to the writer. And I think that that's helpful too with church is that it can give you a step
interesting.
into the leaders of the church or church life. It can give you like behind the scenes stuff. And I think that's really helpful, especially in a world like where we need some more transparency in the church. So, um, yeah.
And like we've been saying, the way people encounter it is so accessible.
Mhm.
Whereas not everyone knows how to or wants to learn how to navigate all the swipes of the internet. But like, okay, subscribe and it's going to show up in your inbox. Or you can download this app.
Mhm.
Or you can, here's the link. You can go read the direct post. You know, it there's multiple ways to get to the same piece of content, and Substack seems to make that work across all generations and how we use the internet. Like I feel like my 75-year-old parents could get a Substack and my 3-year-old could probably figure out how to open it on my phone. So we're at a good range. Every human in my life can read Everything is Crumbling twice a week by Ashley Dargai.
Yeah, I wonder what your 3-year-old would think of that.
He would think you need more Peppa Pig.
Mhm.
Substack is great. Everyone go follow Ashley's Substack. It's Substack, no, ashleydargai.substack.com. Is that right?
Mhm.
There
Yeah.
we go. I'll just put it on screen. This right here, or go to the show notes and click it, and you'll get